Netanyahu has been asked by the world, I guess, for a ceasefire, and he has just steadfastly gone, no, that is never going to happen. Let's have a look at the news story first, and then we'll come back to some more conversations about innocent civilians dying in Gaza and also in Israel.
Mm-hmm. Israel's Prime Minister is rejecting calls for a ceasefire in Gaza. Benjamin Netanyahu says his ground invasion offers the only chance to free hostages.
It comes as Israel reported it had freed one of its soldiers who had been taken hostage.
The only chance seems like a bit of a stretch. Like if Israel said to Hamas, we will stop bombing you if you release the hostages in the next 24 hours. They haven't done that. So when he says it's the only way, I don't think that's necessarily accurate. If he had tried lots of other ways, I'm just talking logistically here, and they'd all failed, he might get to that, but that hasn't been offered or tried yet. So surely one can't claim this is the only way, Chewy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've seen things where they go, oh, we'll do anything to free the hostages. Okay, well, you call a ceasefire. Well, no. Okay, well, they've said that they'll release them if you let every Palestinian political prisoner go. Will you do that? Well, no. Okay, so you won't do anything to get the hostages back. You do a land invasion. Okay, cool.
All right, we'll keep going with News Hub.
By Hamas, and a warning US correspondent Mitch McCann's report contains distressing images.
On the main road through the Gaza Strip, Israel is moving with force. This video posted on social media shows one of its tanks opening fire at a small car. Israeli ground forces are moving in on Gaza City, backed up by firepower from above. A glimpse into an operation that has been carried out in great secrecy.
Yeah.
Right.
What is clear is
it looks like we're looking at an ancient ruins from Roman times. You know, that's how devastated the area is.
Much of Gaza has been leveled since the Hamas attack 3 weeks ago. The Gaza Health Ministry, an agency in the Hamas-controlled government, says 8,000 people have now died. But amid calls from humanitarian groups for a ceasefire, Israel's Prime Minister today said this is a time for war, not peace.
Calls for a ceasefire are calls for Israel to surrender to Hamas, to surrender to terrorism, to surrender to barbarism. That will not happen.
Benjamin Netanyahu said the invasion will put pressure on Hamas to release Israeli hostages. It doesn't create the certainty.
Or it might put pressure on Hamas to get rid of them quickly so they can escape. You know, so it could do that as well.
That will happen, he says, but the possibility that it might.
Just as the United States would not agree to a ceasefire after the bombing of Pearl Harbor or after the terrorist attack of 9/11, Israel will not agree to a cessation of hostilities with Hamas.
And he has his first victory. Ori Megiddish, an Israeli soldier taken hostage by Hamas, was freed during the operation in Gaza last night. But even as the young private was being welcomed back home by her family, others are still being held, like these 3 women who feature in a new hostage video. It's unknown if they were being coerced into what to say, and we will not share it. While Israel hunts for its hostages, Palestinian paramedics have a different target, racing through the streets of Gaza to reach the injured from each airstrike, as the sound of the next one rings out. In the ambulance, a young girl is treated for a head injury as someone in front of her gets CPR. This is what Israel says it's, quote, going out of its way to avoid. In New York, Mitch McCann, News Hub.
So, yeah, disturbing is the right word. Go wait there. That's the story from today, right? Israel has basically said no to any idea of a ceasefire and making all sorts of absolute statements that this is the only way it can work. Now, correct me, Chewy, you know more about World War I, World War II than I did. Did anyone ever call for a ceasefire after Pearl Harbor? I don't feel anyone called for a ceasefire after 9/11 because it wasn't. No one went to the George Bush war going into Iraq ceasefire, because it wasn't like the neighbors happening. I don't know if there was a ceasefire call. So it feels like what Netanyahu's doing is going, they wouldn't have stopped for a ceasefire, because I don't recall that from 9/11. Do you know anything about a call for ceasefire after Pearl Harbor?
No. So a couple of differences that jump to mind straight away if you're going to draw a line between what's happening now in Israel and Palestine with Pearl Harbor is Pearl Harbor and the war in the Pacific was two nation states with an air force and a navy and an army, and they Pearl Harbor was a military target. I couldn't even call what's happening in Israel a war, because in a war you need two armies fighting.
Yeah.
There's just one against the city. And yes, Hamas kicked over the fucking hornet's nest. You know, like even that piece of footage that they showed at the start of the car being shot by the tank. You know, I've seen TikToks and that sort of thing going, look, these guys blow up a civilian car. I kind of see it from the Israeli point of view there. That car looked very, very low to the ground, and could have been a bomb. I get that.
Sure.
But I keep coming back to the fact that how densely populated Gaza is, how little time people had to evacuate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Israel's got the fig leaf of like, oh, we told people to evacuate to the south, but they were doing military strikes to the south. That they've cut the Gaza Strip in half. If you couldn't get out, then you are trapped in there. And anything that moves in that rubble, if you're an Israeli soldier in a tank and you're looking out your little periscope and that sort of thing, and you see something move in the rubble, you will blast it.
Yeah.
You won't wait to see if the guy's wearing a Hamas fucking hoodie or something. You'll just start blasting. And with half of the population of the Gaza Strip being under the age of 18, like how is this anything but a series of war crimes? Like it's I keep coming back to, like, the comparison I saw this week is, do you remember during the Bosnian conflict and the terrible massacres that happened there, that were just crime, not just war crimes, but crimes against humanity?
Yeah.
You remember the worst one, Srebrenica?
It rings a bell.
Yeah, they killed 7,000 people in about a week, and we've surpassed that in Gaza.
Yeah.
People went to the Hague for that.
Love being educated by the chat. Spider Hoofer's with us. G'day, Spides. Pearl Harbor ceasefire was after the nukes, at which point US took over the country and
They called
them.
They dropped one bomb and they asked for a complete surrender, a total unconditional surrender.
Yep.
And then they dropped the second bomb. And then that got the answer.
So what Netanyahu just said was implying straight after Pearl Harbor happened, they wouldn't do a ceasefire. That's not when the ceasefire was agreed to, after Pearl Harbor, obviously. It was a good time later. Now, I want to show you the tweet I put out today, because then we're actually going to go on to a piece of content from about 2 weeks ago. But lots of people mentioned it to me after I put this tweet out. So I'm going to play it, because I'm sure most of you have seen it, but I'm going to play it because it relates to exactly what we're talking about today. So this is what I put out today. This was my tweet. And be honest with me, chat. I don't think this is neither a pro-Palestine, anti-Israel, or pro-Israel, anti-Palestine tweet. I think this is a question about the armed conflict. That's how I feel. Others, trust me in my comments, have read it differently, but that's how I see it. I said this: how many people does Israel need to kill in Gaza to make up for the atrocious acts of Hamas when they brutally murdered innocent festival goers? 5,000, 10,000, 100,000, 1 million? What's the number of dead Palestinians that will make an act of terror by Hamas even? That's what I put out today. And as you can see, there was a pretty big engagement in that throughout the whole day.
Yeah, I bet.
But I mean, I I think that I was refreshed to see what it's at. Yeah, 5,500 people have been involved with that today. I think that's the reason it's fair is because we are saying what Hamas did was an act of terror. I'm saying that what they did, killing innocent lives, no problem, problem of labeling it that. But you don't have to say that means they're wrong and Israel's right, or vice versa. It doesn't mean if you're on Palestinian signs you have to say Hamas is right and Palestinians wrong. And Israel's wrong. What I want to know is when does the killing stop? And at the moment, the killing is all going sort of one way. I know that Hamas is still firing rockets into Israel, but we're not hearing, I could be wrong, but we're not hearing about dozens and dozens and hundreds and thousands of deaths in Israel at the minute. And at what point in their equation do they go, we lost 1,500, then we need 150,000 of yours dead, and then we'll call it even. Now, I know that's not how it works, but it was just a little thought I had today. What I got, Chewy, was several people messaging me about this clip. Now, I know some of you in the chat have kind of seen this clip, and it is Bassam Youssef, and this went viral apparently. I didn't see it until just today. Having a similar conversation with Piers Morgan to that question, like when, and I'm not saying this, and I don't think he says this. Like, when does Israel have its pound of flesh? That's the question that's being asked. And so I'm going to play a bit of it. We'll have a listen to it, and then we'll go from there. So have a listen to the start of this conversation.
Then the question then becomes, again, about proportion. I don't disagree that there's been a lot of bad stuff on both sides going back historically for decades. But if we agree that this was on a different level altogether, quite deliberately by Hamas, designed to provoke... No, here's my question. Let me ask you a question. And the question, because you raised it earlier about proportion. I honestly don't know what the proportionate response is. I honestly don't. I don't. I've been watching the airstrikes this week thinking...
So what's your question?
Well, I would ask you, if you were Israel, what would you...
If I was Israel?
If you were Israel and that had happened to you, what would you think would be the appropriate way for the country to respond?
Well, I mean, like, worst question in the world. You know, sure. If you were
Piers Morgan, so
yeah, I mean, like, so if you were the people that you say are overreacting, disproportionately attacking the people you're supporting, how would you act about that? Ridiculous question. But to his credit, and this is I think why it went a bit viral, he does answer and goes on.
I would do exactly like Israel did, kill as many people as possible, since the world is letting me do it. I mean, I can do it because I can. But the thing is, you know what? I agree with you. And you know what? I'm going to be even ahead of you, because I see the question coming. Do you condemn Hamas for the atrocity? Yes, I condemn Hamas. I condemn Hamas. I condemn Hamas is the source of all evil. They're a reason for everything. And you know what? Let's, for a minute, imagine a world without Hamas.
Right.
What will this world look like? Let's give this word a name, and let's name this word the West Bank. Hamas has absolutely no control in the West Bank. And since the beginning of this year, only through August, 37 Palestinian kids were killed. No music festival, no paragliding, no Hamas. Since the occupation of the West Bank, 7,000 Palestinians were killed. No music festival, no paragliding, no Hamas. I can go on and on and on and on.
No, but you don't need to, because in a way you're preaching to the choir. I've followed this crisis.
Oh no, you're not preaching. So the thing is, like,
in the sense that I know that what you're saying has validity. Of course,
Piers. By the way, Piers. I am at a disadvantage here. I can hear you. I cannot see you. I am in a claustrophobic room, and so please cut me some slack and don't interrupt me and interrupt my point.
Sure.
So, because this has to be fair.
Understand.
Because if you want to only hear your opinion, I can just condemn Hamas and go home. I can do that. So, do you want to do that, or do you have a much more nuanced conversation?
No, I absolutely want to have a nuanced conversation. I wasn't aware I was interrupting you. I thought I was letting you speak.
Amazing. So I would say I really applaud Israel for doing one thing that no military force in the world does. Because I heard Ben Shapiro and I heard Ron DeSantis, and they said Israel is the only military force in the world that warns civilians before bombing them. I mean, how fucking cute. That is so nice of them. Because with this logic, if Russian troops started warning Ukrainians before bombing their houses, we're cool with Putin, right? I mean, okay, Habibi, you have warned them, go invade. It's fine. You have done your job. I mean, the thing is, and I understand all, and I also heard Ben Shapiro talking about human shield. So you remember my wife's family, they live in Gaza. So I asked them, I told them, when Israel gives you the nice warning, the cute warning, does Hamas force you to stay in your home so you can be bombed and use as human shield? You know what? Hassan, here, my wife's cousin, he's a loser. You know, he told me, you know, when I asked him, does that happen? He told me, no. The lying son of a bitch lied to me. I told him, you don't understand. Ben Shapiro and Ron DeSantis keep saying that Israel warned you and Hamas asked you to stay put. So I told you, he's a loser. He never kept a job. He even failed in all of the interviews to become like a human shield. I would believe Ben Shapiro.
Let me ask you this,
So let's go with that. No. Let me ask you
At some point, I must be able to ask you questions. It's not a monologue for you, Bassem.
If we agree that for the 14,000 casualties, I mean, who's counting, are human shield, does that mean that every single one of those civilians was standing, obscuring a military target behind them? Because that's a lot of weapons. I mean, Hamas is packing.
No, of course it doesn't.
There you go. There's a good, very good, I think, conversation around proportionality and disproportionality. So, yeah, I hadn't seen that clip. Cherie, got any thoughts around what we've just seen, what we're thinking about now about the proportionate response?
Yeah, look, it's not proportionate. It's absolutely not. There's so much I'm furious about here. Like, Israel is an incredibly militarized, heavily protected state. You know, they have some of the most advanced anti-rocket defenses in the world, and probably outside of America. They have more experience in conducting this sort of warfare. But this stuff has been simmering. We have been speaking for years about them shooting at journalists, shooting at kids throwing rocks at tanks. We've spoken about them throwing Palestinians out of Palestinian neighborhoods, and now it's a Jewish neighborhood, and they let the settlers move into their homes and that sort of thing. And that's this just nibble. And now they're talking about, one of the plans that we were just spitballing, you know, that we're just going to start talking about now, is moving 2 million people out of the Gaza Strip and just telling them to fuck off to Egypt, go live in the Sinai. And it's just kind of like they're just dipping the toe in the water, see what the international community thinks of this. But at the moment, we all look impotent. Like, governments are going to the UN and saying, yeah, a ceasefire might be good. America's going to veto all of that.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to piss off their lobby at home, and they don't want to piss off the Israelis. They granted a huge amount of emergency military aid. I can't think of a country that needs it less than Israel. They have their own defense manufacturing base. They don't need it.